So guys, the Elden Ring DLC release date finally got announced, but that is not what I'm here to talk about today. Let us take a look instead at Ning and Ping unique augments. At a glance, the upgrades are pretty significant. 35% main gun efficiency, 3 different upgrades to the all-out assault, and 15% bonus damage on top of everything else. In total, you're probably looking at around a 50% total damage increase to the ships with the augments compared to without. However, compared to other good Vanguard ships, these ships offer nothing in terms of anti-air, anti-submarine, damage buffs for other ships, and a lot of their damage is blocked by shields. In order to make up for the total lack of utility, their damage has to be top tier, and it isn't. Even with the augment boosting their gun efficiency to 180%, they still only have a single gun mount, and a torp mount that is almost non-existent due to the abysmal torp stat and complete lack of torp buffs. Their buffed all-out assault is decent, but nowhere near enough to make up for their lack of base stats and weak loadouts. Forget about URs, they're probably not going to be dealing as much damage as the likes of Scylla or Harbin, who offer some utility on top of having more damage. Keep in mind also that the ideal condition for the sisters is to be sortied together and with Yat-sen, meaning that you're bringing a full Vanguard with no utility and no way to deal with enemy planes and submarines. If you only bring one of the sisters with Yat-sen, then they're losing a significant 35% firepower buff, with which their damage still isn't impressive, so it's definitely hard to justify. While their augment also makes them lose 10% evasion rate for the damage bonuses, they are still more than tanky enough, especially since Yat-sen herself can be the primary tank. However, this bulk has no real use, as the likes of Scylla and Harbin can survive just fine in the middle or off-tank slots, despite being quite a bit squishier. If you were wondering whether the ships would be an upgrade to your fleet with the augments, I think you should probably hold off on crafting them. But if you're like my old buddy Yamata and just enjoy using these ships, then by all means craft them and enjoy the huge upgrade to their performance. I will leave you with some good news though, with regards to Tai Yuan retrofit. If you haven't seen it yet, I uploaded a Kirov meta run with her so you can see how much damage you can squeeze out of her if you really tried, but still use the reasonable fleet. I also tested her against the EX raid boss before the event ended, but there wasn't really enough information to warrant an entire video on its own, so I'm throwing it in here. First, I did a comparison between her and her sister Anshan. The biggest difference between the two in their solo performance are their timed barrages, so the difference would be bigger the less your equipment is upgraded. Because Tai Yuan's barrage is completely aimed, it resulted in her dealing 27.2% more damage than Anshan. This is the difference without accounting for the burn, as it seems like Tai Yuan got an extra tick on average because she has a reload buff, while Anshan has an accuracy buff instead. I left the sample size quite small because they are some of the most consistent ships in the game, so I find it unnecessary to do more. You may disagree, and you're free to have your own opinions. While running the tests, I was reminded that missiles can actually start burns, albeit destroyer caliber burns, meaning that any light cruiser or above caliber burns would overwrite them. However, due to the high base damage of the missiles and the burns scaling off torpedo stat and efficiency, they actually deal as much damage as battleship caliber burns. After taking note of this, I realized that the tests I ran against the last EX boss would look a lot different if burns were taken into account, so I gave Yudachi another spin. I wasn't sure whether the Rainbow Gun or Pompeo Gun would be better for Yudachi, as she deals bonus damage against enemies that are burning, so I tried both, but she didn't even get close in terms of damage. After seeing how much less damage she was dealing, I couldn't be bothered to complete a full set of tests. Although Yudachi can technically start burns too, she has low firepower, and as you can see in the results that they are proper destroyer burns that almost heal the enemy, unlike the missile-inflicted burns of the DDGs. Without the burns taken into account, Yudachi is barely pulling half the damage of Tai Yuan against medium, which would be even lower relatively against light. Keep in mind that these tests were conducted against a medium armor enemy, and Tai Yuan is pulling Plymouth level numbers, and against light armor she would deal even more. Even when against a medium armor enemy, if you're using a lot of AP guns or planes and don't have any way to start a burn, then Tai Yuan could potentially find a place in the fleet with the amount of damage she brings, burns included. It is very impressive how much damage she is able to put out despite not being a rainbow. That new missile is totally balanced, by the way. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next one.